Did you know that God initially intended humans to eat only plants? Let us read from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 29. God also said, "See, I give you every seed bearing plant all over the earth, and every tree that has seed bearing fruit on it to be your food." That blows my mind. God wanted humans to be vegans. Chapter 2, a second creation story, says, animals were created as companions to humans. Let us read from chapter 2, verse 18. The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a suitable partner for him." So the Lord God formed out of the ground various wild animals and various birds of the air, and he brought them to the man to see what he would call them. So dogs and cows are both your companions. Don't love one and eat the other. They are your companions. Later on, because of our hardness of heart and sin, God allowed humans to eat animals. You can read this in Genesis chapter 9. But also in chapter 9, God makes a covenant with all the creatures, not just with humans. Let us read from verse 12. God added, "This is the sign that I'm giving for all ages to come, of the covenant between me and you and every living creature with you." God thinks that all living creatures are worthy of being included in the covenant. Other creatures on this earth have value beyond their utility to humans. Otherwise, why else would God bother to include them in the covenant? Out of a commitment to full disclosure, as I've already mentioned, God does permit humans to eat animal flesh in verse 3 of chapter 9. But remember, just because something is permitted, it does not mean we have to do it. If a parent allows a child to eat ice cream right before bed because the child is throwing a tantrum, it does not mean that the child has to eat the ice cream. The child could change his mind and be good and not eat the ice cream and go to bed peacefully. Just because something is allowed, it does not mean that we have to indulge. God allowed humans to eat meat because of their wickedness and their sin. It does not mean we have to eat meat. Choose the better option. Be kind and avoid violence. God gave humans dominion over everything. Yes, that verse about dominion. What about that verse? Well, let us read from chapter 1, verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and the cattle, and over all the wild animals and all the creatures that crawl on the earth." In that verse, it first says that we are made in God's image, a God who is loving and compassionate. Now think about the dominion mandate in the light of compassion. Can you imagine how a compassionate person made in God's image would use his dominion? Certainly not by slaughtering other creatures for the pleasure of eating their flesh. Be kind, be compassionate, and glorify God with your life.